So we left off on Treasure Island. We talked about the setbacks, the problem with the tower being way too close to the sidewalk, and then Wynn taking it into his own hands and making the boardwalk a part of his private property. And so now we're seeing how people, this idea of the casino as a mousetrap and people coming into the gambling floor itself is evolving. And it's really dressed up and Disney-fied, if you will, in order to become a thematic element. And once again, this draws in around 8,000 people at its peak, 4,000 on like a slower day. So you can imagine that there's a lot of people funneling into the casino itself. We talked a little bit about the pirate show, which later was changed in the 2000s. But I want to talk a little bit about the architecture of the actual tower. So the tower is a standard Y shape, but what we see here is the Treasure Island and the Excalibur. Excalibur, one of the biggest faults it has is it looks too large. So you'll notice that on the corner, yes, it is a castle, but then the actual hotel blocks themselves have very, very small windows that mark every single room compared to what Treasure Island does. So Treasure Island is actually taller by around 8 stories than the Excalibur, but it doesn't appear that way because they do the window eye trick. So what this means is that they combine 4 different rooms and they make it look like it's a singular window. So what you see right here is the span of the actual floor of the casino, of the hotel tower, versus the Excalibur, which delineates each one of them. So Excalibur does look 4 times as big as Treasure Island does, despite actually being a whole lot smaller. This is a trick we're going to see several casinos use. Remember that they are bringing in psychologists at this point, and one of the things that they learn is that if they make their building look smaller, that people would be more willing to go there because it doesn't look that far. And I think we've all heard stories of tourists or have family that comes in and they're like, we're gonna walk the strip in one entire night, and they don't realize that it's actually a couple miles long because of all the psychological tricks that the architecture is playing on us. Inside the rooms, you will notice that Treasure Island's windows are all the way to one side or the other in order to create the groupings of 4, versus Excalibur's, which is right in the center because it doesn't really need to group up with any other one. So just a couple of, interesting architectural moves that they make here in order to reduce the looming factor so it doesn't look like there's this gigantic tower right next to you as you enter the property. Now the same day that the Treasure Island opens, Wynn has acquired Dune and he does implode it. So this is the first property on the strip to go through the implosion process. It is pretty iconic. It goes up, I'll just show you guys. For whatever reason, Facebook had the best quality, better than YouTube, so. And so at this point, Wynn and the other people that are buying properties are starting to realize that it's much more profitable to just implode it, not only because you can save a lot of costs on demolition crews, but also because you can make a spectacle out of it. So now people come out just to view the whole implosion, and I think we saw that a couple months ago at the Tropicana. There were a bunch of people trying to film it, and they sort of become a part of the culture of Las Vegas. The other reason that they do this, it's actually not as destructive as you might think. What they do is they essentially rip out everything from the inside, stripping it down to just concrete, and at the most a little bit of steel, so all the elevator equipment, everything gets taken out, so that when they implode it, it really is just a bunch of concrete dust and they can recycle it. Versus trying to tear it down and bulldozing it, it's more dangerous, it takes more time, and at the end of the day, it all ends up in the same place to be recycled anyways. The only problem is just the dust that goes up, which is why they kind of close off the area so people can't be that close to it. But we'll come back to the dunes in a couple of slides because he does have big plans for this area. Now the next one I want to talk about is the MGM Grand. It's a Disney-ish type of architecture on the inside, but you'll notice the exterior is still very corporate modern, and this is because it is a Kerkorian property, right? So Kirk Kerkorian, the guy that built the original MGM, the one that went up in flames and then they renamed to Bally's, decides to make a new MGM Grand in order to erase the memory of the fire and just create a larger property where he could now theme it properly. And so what he creates is a green corporate modern building, and the theme for it inside is going to be the Wizard of Oz. Remember that he does own MGM, the brand, and so he can use all of the films. He has the rights to all of that. And he goes with Wizard of Oz because it's a popular American film, and so green is chosen as a reference to the Emerald City. So originally, you would have entered on that corner. I'm sure you all have seen this image a bunch of times. It was considered bad feng shui for a lot of the Asian tourists though, so they did have to redo the entryway because going through the Plaza line was just not very, it wasn't seen very favorably. But originally we have our Cowardly Lion welcoming us into the MGM Grand, and so it was really interesting. At some point you had the MGM lion, and then you had the Sphinx lion on the Luxor just kind of staring each other down from opposite sides of Las Vegas Boulevard. Today that entrance looks like this. And you'll notice that the pedestrian bridges are actually the most immediate access into the casino floor rather than that corner entry. Originally, that big area you walk into an MGM was themed with different scenes from the movie. So here we have them arriving at the Emerald City, the Yellow Brick Road. You would have had a light show going on with the whole storm, and Elphaba, Elphaba and Dorothy were inside of there as well. So as you go through the property, you would have essentially seen different scenes from the movie play out. As a kid, I'm not originally from Vegas, so as a kid, when I came here on vacation, I was around 6, 7 years old. This was around 6, 7. I came with my dad, and he had been here in the 90s in Vegas, and he tried to take me to the Wizard of Oz exhibit, and it wasn't there anymore. We asked everyone, and the employees were like, "What are you talking about? We don't know anything about Wizard of Oz." So it's kind of sad, but they really quickly forgot about it and they rebranded, which we'll talk about why that is next week. But the other thing that Kerkorian introduces is he begins to diversify the casino experience even further by adding arenas in. So he has the MGM Grand Garden Arena, which is where all the major boxing matches, concerts, all sorts of things go on. So now Las Vegas can be the host to a number of different events. Meanwhile, Fremont Street is also getting Disneyfied, if you will. They removed the road access from Fremont Street for a long time. Remember that this was a regular streets for cars to go up and down, and we had all the neon competing. And then they decided to add the actual Fremont experience and make it into a pedestrian corridor because they had observed from the Mirage, from the Treasure Island, from the Luxor, that people were a lot more willing to become pedestrians as long as they were offered a space to do so. And the positive side of having pedestrians is you're not just getting people from your own hotel tower, you can attract people from the other hotels, and they're gonna come to your property and funnel money into yours as well, even if you're not staying there. And Fremont Street wants to capitalize on this, which is where we get the famous tunnel experience. And so, there is this big critique that begins to open up around the idea of Las Vegas. And remember, it's not just Vegas that's going through this, it is the larger American urban climate. A lot of cities are beginning to get rid of what is considered gritty. New York City in the 70s and 80s is considered Gotham City, that is what it is based off of. And then in the 90s, 2000s, they do begin to clean it up with making it a little bit more child-friendly, getting rid of adult entertainment that is too obvious and so forth. And Las Vegas begins to do the same thing. And so we have our constant crowd of people that have always been in Las Vegas, and they're going, well, we feel a little uncomfortable about the fact that we're gambling, as we always have, and smoking and drinking, and now there's a stroller next to us. That's a little bit weird for them. And on the other hand, you have the parents with their children who feel a little bit uncomfortable about their kids being around, the few adult entertainment that is still available. The other side to this is people to begin to also critique the fact that children are now allowed to get closer to the gambling floor and drinking and smoking and all that other stuff. And it's seen as a way to lure kids into these vices. So there was a conservative reaction towards this. But generally speaking, the casinos did profit off of it. Most people actually really liked it. Again, this is the era in which baby boomers have younger children, so it's a really positive experience for them to be able to come to a city. They can have adult fun, but also have things that the kids are into. And so the other critique that comes out of this is that unlike Disneyland, where everything blends into each other and you can't really tell when you go from one area of Disney to the other, Las Vegas doesn't do that. It is a privately owned Disneyland, so that each of them doesn't really have to conform to the other. And so you go from being, in the midst of this medieval castle to going to an Egyptian excavation site. Some people criticize that, but some people actually applaud this, and it truly is in the nature of Las Vegas, right? It is where you expect the unexpected. It really does not go against the nature of anything that we've already done. And so we begin to open up the idea of Vegas to architectural discourse. This has been going on since the 60s with Robert Vittori and Denise Scott Brown, and it's still ongoing today. We'll always have a lot of critics, but at the same time, Vegas is an experimental grounds. If you're gonna do something crazy, you do it here, because it doesn't stand out as much of a sore thumb as if you did it somewhere else. We did not know London was gonna get its own sphere, but then people petitioned against it. I don't think they're gonna do it anymore, but it happened in Vegas, so now we have the only sphere in the world for now. And so in the Disneyland era, we do learn 3 more things. Number 1, we learned how to diversify the casino experience, so not just offering gaming and a hotel tower, but also giving entertainment, and not just for men, but also for women and for children and families. Number 2, we learned the power of storytelling. So you don't just slap on a theme to the front of the casino and call it good. You also have to offer experiences that go along with this, and you also have to ask your cast or your crew members to play into that experience. And then lastly, we learned how to cater and use pedestrians to the profit of the casinos. Okay, so now we're gonna get started on the real lecture for today, which is when we enter the analysis of the Strip and the gentrification, of America. So gentrification, remember all that means is driving out locals and bringing in the middle class once again, and once again beautifying the city in a way that's not really authentic. So we're gonna see what that means in the context of Las Vegas. So after the Disneyland era, we enter a very, very short time period called the Sim City era, because it's a simulation of a bunch of different cities around the world. Now, in comparison to the Disneyland era, SimCity is not really catering to kids anymore. So whereas in the Disneyland era, we see that boomers are still sort of middle-aged, they have younger children, they can come with their family. By the time that we move into the SimCity era, we see that they're now a little bit older, that now Gen X is the primary, or becoming the primary working force. And so what happens is our casino managers start realizing that they shouldn't be catering to baby boomers with kids. They need to start catering to baby boomers that are empty nesters, that no longer have any kids. And so Las Vegas begins to become adult-oriented once again. We also have our Gen Xers who are still in their early 20s at this point. Most of them don't have kids, and so it just makes sense, because we are in this in-between phase, to create a Vegas that caters more to adults. Now, the first example that we're going to talk about is the Monte Carlo. Because at this time, traveling was becoming more prevalent. Remember that we've deregulated the airlines, so now we have cheaper flights everywhere. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone can travel, but it does mean that more people are traveling. And so what you get is this class, like average middle, lower middle class of people who want to travel, but it's not quite accessible to travel as far as Europe. And so Las Vegas begins to capitalize on this and bring Europe and all these other places around the world to Americans. So now it kind of becomes a more democratic process of traveling. Monte Carlo is the first place they look to because it has a very luxurious reputation, right? There's nothing that a middle-class American likes more than to feel like they're living a luxurious lifestyle. Las Vegas is a form of escapism, and Monte Carlo offers that. They do also have a very famous casino, so all of it's just starting to make a lot of sense. What time period do you guys think that this building is from, more or less, just by the context clues of the material, the style, etc.?
Germanic?
German? No, this is Monte Carlo. It's in
Frank?
Monaco.
Oh.
Yes. No. What time period? What era? So going back to last semester, what era is this building from?
Neoclassical?
It has neoclassical influences, but what other material are we seeing on it? Iron, yes. Iron. So we know that this time period that they're going to encapsulate at the Monte Carlo is going to be post-industrial revolution, otherwise known as the Art Nouveau movement. You guys should have recognized the Art Nouveau by the way that the porch is being manifested. Look at all the whiplash lines. If you could not recognize it, you should go back and study your 201. So, the Monte Carlo Casino, again, it is the symbol of luxury. And when they start designing the Monte Carlo in Las Vegas, interestingly, they actually don't have a theme when they start. They simply build a standard Y-shaped tower, they build the podium, they have all the slots for where the restaurants and all the shows are going to be, but they don't have a theme yet. That's the last thing that they actually select, because they know that at the end of the day, when it comes to an older demographic that doesn't have children, the theme doesn't really matter that much, as long as it looks nice and it feels luxurious. And so the Monte Carlo, if any of you ever went into it prior to becoming the MGM Park, you would have noticed that it doesn't really have a lot of focal points. It's really not as interesting as a lot of the other casinos because of the fact that it wasn't really made with a theme in mind. They just kind of plastered it on. Notice that the front of it doesn't really have a show experience at all. It is a wide sidewalk, there are fountains, but there is no free entertainment to bring in the families. It is just a standard wide tower and a humongous podium. Interior, we can see is very clearly trying to emulate the Monte Carlo Casino. Right? But overall, it's a very, very simple type of construction. They don't really go all out like Wynn was doing. The purpose of the Monte Carlo was to make money. There really wasn't any other idea or grand scheme behind it. So the next one that we have come along is going to be the New York, New York. So you see Monte Carlo is being built right here. It did take 16 months, so less than a year and a half to construct the entirety of it, which is crazy. And then we have New York, New York beginning construction down here. You'll notice that New York, New York is a different plan. It is not a wide tower. They did conceive it as a series of monuments, so it's a bit of a barred construction. I did want to talk briefly about the Monte Carlo fire. If you were here in around 2008, 7, 8, 9, around that time period, it did have a fire on the top floors because of the fact that all the foam caught on fire, and as you know, foam is a very synthetic material, so it lights on fire quite quickly. Now, this goes to show how quickly the construction was done, how cheap the materials were, and how lax the building codes were. So after this, they did start regulating how big those foam cornices could actually get. You don't really see them to that size anymore. So New York, New York starts constructing itself from the ground up. It is a series of big monuments on the back to create the tower, and then the podium is a series of smaller monuments on the front. So it really does work as a skyline, and the theme is just America. And when people think America, obviously New York is the city that comes to mind, and so this is really a celebration of how American you can get. If you're interested, these are all the different monuments that they begin to recreate. So now they're not just bringing on a vague, theme of Monte Carlo, but they're literally copying and extracting the precedents that they're going to be using in order to pull at American heartstrings. Originally, our Brooklyn Bridge did go over water. That was later taken out once they redid the park section with the T-Mobile Arena. And then we do get our first little faux city inside the New York, New York. But notice that it's still in its very early stages. We do not yet have a whole sky painted up on top. That is later going to be introduced in the Venetian, I believe. So it still reads very fake. The concept of New York, New York is that it is a war-era city, right? So 1945, right around the time World War II ended, when people are out celebrating, that's seen as the era to capture the most New York feeling in. So in the same way that Monte Carlo sort of chooses the Belle Epoque or the Art Nouveau era, New York chooses the war era because it's what's going to tug, again, the primary demographic is baby boomers with no kids, and their parents were around in that war era, so they sort of remember the New York of back then. And obviously we are not going to make a New York of the 60s or 70s, because that's when it started to get bad. So this is really the last sort of great era of New York, according to the 90s. And of course they have the roller coaster, all of it is quite thematic. There's still some kids stuff more or less, but you can see it's starting to become more adult oriented. Now, very interesting part of New York, is the Statue of Liberty. So when New York was constructed, we did have a lot of New Yorkers who were upset about all this. They said Las Vegas was a ripoff, that we were just stealing the monuments. Other people said it was actually great that people from the West Coast could visit New York without having to go all the way to New York, and that it was actually a lot cleaner than the real New York. Now, one of the funniest things that happens with these Statue of Liberty is it's actually used in Hollywood a lot more often than the real Statue of Liberty. And where we really see this rub salt in the wound of New Yorkers is on the postage stamp. So the 2011 Liberty stamp, if you notice, does have a little bit of a square going on right here because there's a lot of noise, you can't really see it. There is a square there, and someone who was a postage enthusiast was looking at it, and they realized that that was not a picture of the real Statue of Liberty, it was a picture of the Las Vegas Statue of Liberty. So the casino owners were just so happy when they realized all this, because the New Yorkers were going really hard on New York, and when our postage stamp, Liberty stamp, was based on the Las Vegas monument, they were just posting it all over the place. They were really celebrating. So if you've ever seen this stamp, if you ever put your hands on it, do pay attention to her crown, because it is our local Statue of Liberty. Now, we just saw the Dunes implosion a couple of minutes ago, and I told you Wynn has big plans for this property, because that's the property that is going to become the Bellagio. The Bellagio is based on a city in Italy called Bellagio. It is really super small. In fact, you could house the entire population of Bellagio, the town, in Bellagio, the casino, and they still wouldn't fill up the entirety of the hotel tower. So it's a really, really small town, but it is picturesque. And this is the essence of what Wynn wanted to capture. He wanted to have a very quiet and serene experience compared to what he had been doing in the Mirage and the Treasure Island, which was really loud. In Disney, this was going to be a little bit more adult-oriented. So in his own words, we're just going to watch a clip of how he describes.
Bellagio was designed to appeal to people who did not come to Las Vegas, in addition to everybody who did come to Las Vegas. To that extent, it was meant to be a place that was an alternative to Paris, to New York, to San Francisco, in a very real sense. Like Joel Gray says in the wonderful lyric in the opening number, "You'll come to Cabaret." In here, everything is beautiful. The girls are beautiful. Even the band is beautiful. And when I say it's nicer inside here than it is out there, I don't just mean the strip. It's nicer inside here than it is in the real world. And people, this place was built to make people say, I want to stay here. There are quiet moments. There are moments when there is no energy, when you can go and stand and look. You can see the colors of real flowers and walk in this garden, and then you can go look at the colors of anemones and pineapple from Henri Matisse. You can hear the music.
Anyways, you get the idea of what he was trying to go for. He wanted to create a different experience, and as he said, he was trying to cater to the people who would not regularly come to Las Vegas, the people who would have gone out to a resort, who wanted to be somewhere a little bit more quiet. So Bellagio originally was going to be a huge island casino with the whole thing being water out in the front. That was later retrofitted to just be 15 acres out in the front, so it's a 15-acre bay. We'll talk about why that is in a second, but I do want to show you guys the commercial that was also going around advertising the Bellagio. Back in the day, we did have commercials, and so this was distributed all throughout the world to begin drawing people's attention and have them come to the opening. I want you to listen to the music, get the vibes from it. get an idea of how they wanted to market the Bellagio as being a different place from anywhere else on the Strip. And if you notice, the takes that they did were very intimate. They did not show at any point any of the Strip, any of the surroundings. You wouldn't even know that it's in a desert. They did very close-ups, and notice there were no kids, right? It was a very romantic, adult-oriented theme. Now the setback, in order to make this happen, did have to increase from the Mirage's 600 feet, which was at the time innovative, and he pushed it to 1,000 feet. So now we have a much larger setback to work with, which allows us to create a much more immersive water experience. And so he creates this village around the end over here, around the edges, and that's going to be where all the restaurants are located. And so now the lake isn't just to draw people in, it's also for people to experience from the inside out. So as our pedestrians line up in order to watch all of the shows, they'll later be funneled into the actual casino in a number of different ways. So directly through the actual sidewalk. You can also approach it through this arcade, which we'll look at right here. I hope you all recall that prototype. And then you could also approach it through this bridge. So he really creates a number of different experiences. All of them are equally picturesque and equally luxurious to bring people into the property. So when he talked about intimate moments in his interview, he was talking about this, right? So it's not just a straight front. He does create these balconies so that it can feel like you fully are immersed in the lake at some point, and you can almost ignore what's going on in the peripheries. He does add trees. These are quiet moments. The trees are actually one of the first shaded elements on the Las Vegas Strip. They have since become controversial, but at the time they were really quite special. And then of course he adds the famous dancing waters. So because originally it was going to be this huge lake, they were going to have water skiing, but then once they had to cut it down to 15 acres, they decided that they were going to do something a little bit more classy that wouldn't necessarily need having people in the water. And that's where they got the famous water jet idea to have the water show. Now, I did want to talk about the water really quickly. Bellagio does have a website called Bellagio's Commitment to Environmental Sustainability. If you didn't know, by the time the Bellagio was in permitting at Clark County, there were very heavy water restrictions, and the lake would not have been possible if Wynn had not negotiated with them. So he somehow found the loophole. I can't for the life of me find what the loophole is, but he found the loophole in legislation, and he was able to secure the water rights to his own property in exchange for cutting off the municipal water source. So Bellagio gets its water from underground wells. So it says, reducing water at the Bellagio. We are committed to using water responsibly. They do shoot up thousands of gallons of water into the air every single day that evaporates, that don't go right back into Lake Mead. And they talk about not using municipal or Lake Mead, Colorado water sources, which sounds great, but then you think about the water they're pulling, and it's from our aquifer, which I told you was at some point only 5 feet deep, then it was 300 feet deep in the time of Paul Revere Williams. It's probably around 500 to 700 feet deep at this point, and it continues to be drained with properties like the Bellagio, but they do try to push this narrative that they're being more sustainable because of the fact that they're not using municipal water source from Lake Mead. Just wanted to put that out there. Now, the entrance on this side, I told you, was an arcade, and you can sort of begin to see the glass moving through it right here. The inspiration is, of course, the Galleria that we saw in our Industrial Revolution lecture. Remember, this was one of those new prototypes that Iron made possible, and it was considered a luxury experience. And that's exactly what they're trying to emulate here. Wynn was the first person to also bring in big brands, more expensive brands that would have never wanted their name associated with Las Vegas. That started to become possible at the Bellagio, which goes to show how different this was when it opened. On the other side, he does create that bridge entryway, which you can see is an elevated experience that brings you over the entirety of all the pavement and the asphalt, so you are fully immersed the second that you get off of that sidewalk, and you're not walking through all of this in the same way that older properties made you do it. And so because of that, New York Times actually praises the Bellagio and says it's one of the few casinos that actually looks good in daylight. And if you recall from our other lecture, when Wynn redesigned the Golden Nugget, that was his goal. He didn't want it to look tacky during the day with all of that neon. He wanted to bring a sense of class and make it glow during the day as well. And he recreated that experience at the Bellagio at just a bigger scale. There we see a little bit more of that Belle Pop, or a little bit more of the Art Nouveau aesthetic going on in the porte-cochere. So the porte-cochere is still very important. We do have a Chicouli piece, so if you do not know who Dale Chicouli is, he's a famous art sculptor. You literally don't have to go that far to see one. We have one here, but every major American city at some point you're gonna find a Chicouli. Our museum is in Seattle. He's a very famous glass artist. This piece alone is 50,000 pounds and it is worth $3 million. When the Bellagio was being conceived, Wynn had a budget of $10 million for art, and he ballooned it to $300 million in fine art in order to bring in those higher-end guests. Of course, we have the botanical gardens themselves, which are still quite popular today. But the smaller gem of the three is going to be the actual Gallery of Fine Art, which most people don't know exists. Though there were originally Van Goghs, excuse me, Picassos, all sorts of famous pieces located inside of the gallery. Today it is rotating, so you can still visit it. The Van Goghs won't be there, but you will see all sorts of other modern artists inside of there. And this gallery is what brought in a lot of the higher-end clientele. So this one was at some point here in Vegas when they purchased it to display it there. What he also starts doing is bringing in celebrity chefs. So the idea of branding becomes really important, not just the branding of the casino, but the brands within the casino. So the brands of the shopping arcade and also the brands of the chefs. So now you can have a luxury experience in dining as well. And the restaurants, for the most part, are located around the lake itself, so that once again, you get an immersive experience, and it's not just a dark room inside a casino podium. And what this does is it allows people to come in from the casino floor. They can look straight through all the way to the actual lake, and that only makes them want to enter those restaurants and those shops even more. So it's a marketing tactic. You know, if you want to go see the lake up close, you have to be sitting and dining inside of there. Now, in order to have this permeability, Wynn and his architect do have to work on a new idea for where to locate the services. Because if you think about it, you do need a kitchen, you do need service corridors. And so what he does is he brings them underground, and that way you have a perfectly permeable first floor so that people are unobstructed, right? There are plans for a future extension in this area, so they're going to redo it. You can see they're going to add more shops so that people now walk through shops and retail before they get into the casino on this end as well, and it's going to look like this. And I'm showing you this just so you get an idea of how immersive the architects get. They're drawing from the color palettes, they're actually studying the lodging of the town in order to get inspiration, right? So they're not just pulling this out of nowhere. And then, of course, there's the big tree controversy. I'm just going to talk about it briefly. The original trees, many of them were cut down to build the podiums for the F1 race. Later, they were brought back in. Unfortunately, a lot of the trees did not make it, so they had to be replaced after 3 months. And it really brought up a lot of conversations around the sustainability of Las Vegas, etc. So we're just going to leave it there. All right. So we do have someone from Special Collections with us here today, and she's going to be giving us a little bit of a rundown and introduction into the experience there.
Cars that are
there. I'm Sue Gamshaw. I'm the head of public services and special collections and archives, and I know that some of you have come in to visit. How many? I see, okay. So I'm guessing, was that the first time you ever visited Special? because I'd love to kind of give you a little bit of insight into what we do, might give you kind of a little bit more of an understanding if you've never just kind of been sort of dropped into it. Let me give you just, maybe you could watch this tiny little video with me. More than 7 minutes. But to give you an idea, because we are a part of the library that collects, preserves, and makes accessible historical materials on Las Vegas, the gaming industry, entertainment, Southern Nevada, anything that has to do with Las Vegas, Southern Nevada, and gaming and gambling. But let's just watch this brief little video, and then you can get an idea of what we do. Sorry for those of you who aren't able to come in, but it still might be insightful. So.
UNLV Special Collections and Archives can be found on the 3rd floor of Lead Library, located on the traditional homelands of the Movie Southern Paiute people, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. We collect, preserve, and provide in-person and online access to unique and rare materials focused on Las Vegas, our region, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and the gambling industry worldwide. Unlike other parts of the library, our materials may not be checked out or physically removed from our space. Our reading room is an inclusive and welcoming area for researchers to access physical materials housed in our many collections. Researchers can explore a wide variety of materials related to Las Vegas, including collections focused on the founding and early years of the city, architecture and urban planning, water and the environment, politics, and government. Other significant collections value the rich diversity of communities and organizations that give our region its unique character. They enable researchers to learn about Las Vegas's African American, AAPI, Jewish, Latinx, LGBTQ+, and Native American communities and their many important contributions to the history of Southern Nevada. Other collections illustrate the many contributions made by women in the areas of ranching, activism, politics, medicine, entertainment, and more. Researchers focused on gaming and hospitality can explore collections on the legendary hotels, casinos, gambling, cuisine, and entertainment that made Las Vegas famous. In addition to these, our collections on Central and Southern Nevada's mining and railroad industries provide insight into boomtowns like Goldfield, Rhyolite, and Tonopah. No history of Las Vegas would be complete without understanding how federal government projects like Hoover Dam, Basic Magnesium, Nellis Air Force Base, and the Nevada Test Site shape our region. We house numerous collections focusing on these projects and their impact on Southern Nevada's growth and the development of its infrastructure. UNLV Special Collections and Archives also serves as the university's official archive. These collections include papers from various colleges and departments, prominent faculty members, and the university's administration. Other materials include the student newspaper, yearbooks, and various university publications. Visual materials include a vast assortment of photography dedicated to the documentation and promotion of the UNLV campus and its various communities. You can research all of these subjects by exploring various types of physical or digital materials in our collections. These include books and journals, archives, architectural plans, maps, oral histories, and photographs. Other specialized examples include rare and unique artist books, menus, set design and costume drawings, movie posters, playing cards, digital files, and websites relevant to our collecting areas. Our book collection includes scholarly and popular works, government publications, as well as fiction titles set in Las Vegas and Nevada. Rare books in our collection date back to the 16th century and focus primarily on the subjects of gaming and gambling, and feature important works in a variety of languages. Other rare books provide a broad overview of the changes in literature, printing and publishing, advertising, and book history over 4 centuries. Our collection of magazines, journals, and newspapers date back to the late 19th century, but also contain many current community publications. These titles provide a portrait of Las Vegas and its activities in the 20th and 21st centuries. Other significant journals in our collection include historic and contemporary gaming industry trade publications, LGBTQ+ related publications, and more. Our unique archival collections include both the personal papers of notable Las Vegas residents and the records of businesses and organizations from our region. These collections date from the late 1800s to the present day. They may feature materials such as correspondence, diaries, ephemera, and photographs, while other collections contain legal and financial documents, business reports, newsletters, and memos. We make available numerous historical and contemporary maps of Las Vegas and Nevada. These date from the 19th century to the present and provide essential visual information on the physical landscape and growth of our region. In addition to USGS topographical maps, our collection contains many others focused on railroads, mining, real estate, tourism, water, and geology. Our oral history collection consists of the personal stories of over 3,000 individuals who provide rich detail on the history of Las Vegas dating back to its earliest days. From casino employees and construction workers to showgirls and musicians to activists and politicians, our oral history collection tells the story of Las Vegas from many diverse perspectives. The interviews, which have been collected since the 1970s, are available as transcripts and digital audio files. Our photograph collection consists of hundreds of thousands of images which provide visual documentation of the Las Vegas Valley, its landscape, its buildings, and the many people who have called this region home. They include family snapshots, publicity photographs, official government images, postcards, and photographic albums, and are composed of prints, negatives, transparencies, and digital images. Our collection includes audio recordings, film and video, and digital files containing news footage, documentaries on gambling and Las Vegas history, as well as movies filmed in Las Vegas. The collection also includes rare footage of Las Vegas in the 1920s, production shows, and interviews with prominent Southern Nevada residents and politicians. Our materials can be viewed during an in-person visit or if available through online browsing. Collections containing physical materials and digital files not available online may be examined in our reading room, while a large selection of digitized items are available online through our portal at special.library.unlv.edu. Our staff looks forward to assisting you in person, via email, or by phone. We are committed to providing an exceptional experience for all of our researchers, including those that may need accommodations. Please feel free to reach out prior to your visit with any questions or requests you may have. Thank you for your interest in UNLV Special Collections and Archives.
Thanks for sitting through that with me. Some of you who've already been, hopefully it gives you a little bit more context. And for those of you, sorry about that, those of you who haven't been in, it'll give you an idea of what we have. And for this project that you were assigned, I know that you are assigned a Las Vegas location, a historic landscape, historic building. So some of these, the good news is some of them you may be online on our portal that we just saw, special.library.unlv.edu. So you might be able to find what you need on the portal that's already been digitized. Not everything that we have has been digitized, but a good, I would say the majority of locations on that list, we did have a digital photograph up. So that is something that you can use and download and use in presentation or print it out for your assignment. The one thing we may not always have is a architectural drawing plan or something like that for every location, especially the more recent locations. We don't have all the plans for, like the Sphere is something we probably wouldn't have any plans for, or maybe any photographs, but the older locations we're going to have a lot about. So let me just show you really quickly how to use our portal. And if anybody has any questions, just let me know. So, yes?
How can we make an appointment? You do it in person?
You actually don't really need to make an appointment. You can come in anytime unless you think you're going to request a lot of materials. But depending on your selected location, we might be able to actually look it up. So we can look up something while this is our portal. And this is, it features material that is digitized material, you can access it right through this portal, or it gives you information about what we have in the collections that you might have to come in and visit in person. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, so. Does anybody have like a location that they got I can give a try? Yes.
The shops at Crystal or area?
I'd pretty much tell you, I don't think we have anything on that, because that is a very recent one, and, let me just put, Aria, see what we have on Aria.
Circus.
Sign, okay, photographs, but, let's try, so you can see how I went up here when I said refine my results, and I said digital object. What that does is you can see originally, when I did the search and I put Aria in there, I got 418 results. Because you can say display results right here, it's 418. This is bringing up everything that has the word Aria in it. And then if I go here to digital object, I get 379, and then it's only digitized content that's available online. Because in that first batch of results, it's going to be everything, and it might be stuff that you would need to come in and visit. But let's also go down a little bit further and go to material type, and we'll go to photographs, and then we just always have, because in the batch of digital returns, it's going to also have oral history transcripts that might mention the ARIA. So when I did this and I limit it to photographs, I'm going to get just images. And then also, if you go up here where you can see, digital list or grid, we're looking at the list view. What might be more helpful if you want to look at photographs is to look at the grid view. Let's go here, takes a minute. Because you can see, you just see them one after another, just like, so it might be more helpful if you're looking at images to go to the grid view. You can also then change the results per page to be, up to 100 if you want to do that. It takes a minute to change to that view, but then you can look at them rather quickly. The drawback is it doesn't have as much description, but come on, let's see it. It's thinking. You can see that it's thinking up there. So it's got a lot of content, so it takes sometimes a minute. But anyway, this is the grid view for you to see like that. Let's put in, we can be more specific, and we could put in, and I would say if you have sort of a multiple word title of something that you're trying to find, you can see. But sometimes this is pulling everything from ARIA, like this was shot in the ARIA, with the ARIA as a background, and somebody named ARIA, so you have to be willing to kind of dig a little bit. But let's put, so we put it in the shots at Crystals, right, just like that. So that didn't come up. I think that might have been one I had created a little spreadsheet listing all the topics that your professor sent us, and that might have been one that I said that we didn't have anything on. So again, some of the more recent polls are more recent construction. We may not have anything. Anybody else for, yes?
Circus.
Okay, that for sure I know we're gonna have. So you can see I just put it in quotes. Because if you don't, Circus probably not is not the best example for this, but if you put like Fremont Street, you would get everything with Fremont and everything with street, which could be other streets not. So it helps you get a more tighter return of materials. So let's hit search. And then let's go up here and let's go to digital objects. You can see we have 893 results. If we go to digital object, we have 547 results, and then that means everything is going to be on the portal for you. So there's postcards, sometimes there's video, but if we want to go down here to material type, let's go to photographs, and let's go to just hit photographs, and then that gets us down even further to 288 items.
And just make sure you're not using the Circus that's in Reno. If you've ever been to Reno, do know that there's actually a Circus with the same scary clown there as well. So there's postcards here, there's images, lots of postcards. Oops, let's find. You can actually, let's see if we can go to, let's go to colored photographs, just to kind of, because we're getting a lot of postcards, which I think is probably fine if you use postcards, but if we do this, well, here's an example of a black and white photograph, which is something, and I'll just show you how it works. So there's the photograph, you can see the date right there, and you can see the description. And then if you scroll down, you see this little red box. That's how you can download it to use it in a PowerPoint, or this is a school project, so typically fair use would probably apply. So you would hit I agree, and then it would allow you to download the actual high-res TIFF. You see there's the TIFF file, and you can save that. I would probably, if you're going to use it in a PowerPoint, a digital, you might want to transform it into a JPEG. A TIFF, like 5 TIFFs would probably crash a PowerPoint or something. But if you were using it to print out, to make a collage, you could also use a TIFF. But then, so you have the, go to your download, and there's the file right there. So, and it's a TIFF, so it's usually 600 DPI. The resolution is pretty high. So quite a lot of material on Circus. We can also go down here to, let's get rid of photographs, and here we go. I want to also show you, if you go to resource type, again, we can go to, material type. Let's go to architectural drawings, so you can go here and see what you can find under architectural drawings. So there's a proposal for it, and you can open that, and it has all the different pages and blue line and white line drawings there. So you can see how I did that. I did digital object, and then I went down here to material type, and I selected architectural drawings. So under material type, if it exists. If it doesn't exist there, we may not have it. It's digitized and online. So always check here first, digital object, to see what comes up for your topic. But there's lots of material on Circus that you can choose from, and then again, you go to an architectural drawing. Here's the elevation from 1968, and then you can go down here and download the TIFF. So does that make sense? Hopefully it's probably, so if you have selected something that is available on the portal, you can just download the material and you wouldn't need to come in. Not that we wouldn't love to have you, but if you were on a time crunch and you have something that can be utilized via the portal, that's fine. If you do come in with the, let's look for some, anybody else have a different one that we can look up? Okay.
The LVO main
The most recent one?
No, the Las Vegas Academy, the old.
Okay, that was, probably we'd call that the Las Vegas High School, because that's what it was before it was the Las Vegas Academy. Let's put that one in. So that's actually a good thing to know, is that it's, it was the Las Vegas High School, before the Las Vegas High School transformed to a different campus. So again, we put it in quotes. And so actually there's the Las Vegas High School architectural drawings, which is great. Let's go to refinement, let's go to content type, and let's see what they have in digital objects. Because when we put Las Vegas High School in, we get 1,059 results. Let's go to digital object. That gets us to 636 results. Lots of different photographs. Let's go to material type. Let's go to photographs. That actually gets us down further to 228 photographs. Now there's some of the buildings. There's some of the photographs of the building. And again, you can go here to the download button. Sometimes there's photographs of people inside. Here's the construction, which is kind of interesting. Lots of different years of the building.
let's see, and then let's go back to that. Let's take off the filter for photographs. And let's go down here to material type and see if there is a filter. It looks like lots of different material, but I don't see that the architectural drawings were digitized. You can see there's many, many things, photographs, transcripts, slides, serials, which are like journals, newspaper clippings, but on this particular list of types of digitized materials, it doesn't list the architectural drawings. So let's go back to that original list. And Las Vegas High School architectural drawings. So this one you would have to come in to look at, and you would request collection MS00925, Las Vegas High School architectural drawings. And let's open this collection up. And all this documentation on the individual collection, I apologize, it's hard to talk over this. All of this documentation is called a finding aid. And a finding aid is essentially a guide to what's in the collection, because this is 6 files of material. And maybe for your project, you only really need to look at one. So you can look at it in this view, which is a web-based view, or you can go to this PDF view. And if you do that, it's basically the same information as we just saw in the web-based view, but it's a PDF that you could print out and take notes on. And there's the citation, if you need a citation for your project, that's helpful. There's a little historical note on it and tells where the current location of Las Vegas High School and how it became, there's just information about it. And let's go down here. If we scroll down, this is the inventory of the collection. So you learn that, like the academic gymnasium shop buildings, there's 37 sheets of that in flat file 1 and flat file 2. So you would, if that's what you wanted to see, you could request those at the front desk in special collections. And again, you'd be requesting it from this collection, which is MS00925, Las Vegas High School architectural drawings. So it looks like you've got a little bit of luck on that. Like one thing is definitely online, but the other ones aren't. So, anyone else? So we can just kind of go over this process again if anybody else has a, yeah?
The Plaza Hotel Casino.
Okay, for sure there are lots of photographs of that. Let's call it Plaza Hotel. That one has changed titles over the years. It was the Union Plaza Hotel, and it's the Plaza Hotel. So, let's see. We got the Plaza Hotel, that gave us 417 results. Let's go just to digital objects, and that is just 317 results. But let's make sure there was so let's see. Let's see what the name for this is actually. So this is the Union Plaza Hotel. Let's try Union Plaza Hotel. That might be a better term to search under. Okay, so we get 273 results. Let's go to the digital objects. We get 238. And here are a number of different images. So there's postcards, there's black and white images. And again, you can go here, and then you see the little red button for downloading the high-res image. Let's go down here and see material type, photographs, oral histories, aerial photographs, programs, manuscripts, but it does not look like we have any architectural drawings that are digitized. Let's go back here. Let's see. So you can see from refining my results, I refined it to an archival collection of materials. And let's look at these. Does not look like it. This is photographs. Let's try and.
don't think this one has any drawings either. This first file description is architectural and civil drawings, but it dates from 1906 to 1964, and the Union Plaza Hotel wasn't built till about 1970 or 71, I believe. So I don't think it would be in this one. So that may be one where there are no architectural drawings. But definitely there's a lot of photographs online of that particular one. Anything else? Or I think we're getting to the end of class. So all of you who've seen, you have the little red card, it has the address there, special.library.unlv.edu. So you can definitely look and see if there's any materials that you need. There's an email address there if you want to email us and ask us for any help. If you didn't get hopefully you had a chance to write down the URL. If you didn't get a card, I apologize. But again, we're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And again, there might be a lot of material online for your projects. Thanks a lot. Thank you. I'll stay if you have questions.
All right, guys, since we did not finish the quiz, I'll take it out of the 2 questions that you guys answered. So just put your name on it and you can turn